The adventure begins with an airplane slicing through the sky, its passengers all just minutes away from reaching their destination as the aircraft passes over an unknown forest below, completely unaware of the destruction about to unfold. Inside the cabin sits a woman named Lisa, traveling with her boyfriend, and this is her very first flight. She has never been on a plane before. Nervous and scared, Lisa clings tightly to her boyfriend, failing to fasten her seatbelt, a small mistake that unexpectedly ends up saving her life. As the plane continues forward, heavy turbulence violently shakes the cabin. The aggressive jolts make Lisa hold on to her boyfriend even tighter, but something far worse is about to happen. Without warning, a small private jet belonging to some unknown wealthy owner crashes directly into the large passenger plane. The situation turns catastrophic as both aircraft collide. A massive hole tears through the fuselage, and everything, flight attendants, luggage, passengers, is violently sucked out into the void, falling to their deaths thousands of feet below. Lisa, who is not wearing her seatbelt, is also pulled toward the gaping opening by the immense force. Her boyfriend tries to hold on to her, but the pressure is too overwhelming. Lisa believes she is about to die, but at the last moment, she manages to grab onto a seat firmly and refuses to let go under any circumstances. Her boyfriend, strapped in by his seatbelt, reaches for her desperately, but the plane suddenly breaks into two pieces, and the section where he sits completely disintegrates and explodes in midair. Watching her boyfriend die right in front of her eyes shatters Lisa emotionally, while the remaining section of the plane carrying her continues plummeting rapidly toward the ground. She quickly climbs onto the seat she's gripping, corrects her fatal mistake, and fastens the seatbelt. Struggling, weakening, the lack of oxygen at such extreme altitude makes it nearly impossible to breathe, softly, resignedly, leaving her helplessly waiting for her fate. As the wreckage plummets earthward, the same unknown forest filled with massive, dense trees looms into view. Unsure whether she will survive, Lisa closes her eyes. With controlled horror, the broken section of the plane crashes violently into the forest canopy. But after some time, Lisa opens her eyes. She is alive. Thankfully, the piece of the aircraft she's trapped in hasn't completely disintegrated. Practically, and because she fastened her seatbelt, she wasn't thrown around like the others. Though she remains barely conscious, her body riddled with multiple fractures. When she finally tries to unfasten her seatbelt and stand, she discovers that a sharp iron rod has pierced completely through her leg. Despite her attempts to pull it out, the pain only intensifies as blood pours from the wound. Knowing she cannot move unless the rod is removed, Lisa's screams echo through the silent forest as she forces herself to endure the unbearable agony and eventually pulls it out with extreme difficulty. Once free, her first instinct is to call out for her boyfriend. When she notices a man in the seat beside her, she moves to check on him, but what she sees is so horrific that the shock overwhelms her completely, and she faints. Sometime later, a rescue team of officers appears in the sky, having learned that a plane has crashed in the area, arriving to search for survivors. The loud sound of the helicopter wakes Lisa. Frantically, she grabs a scarf from a nearby body and starts running, breathlessly ignoring the searing pain in her leg, screaming and waving it overhead, pleadingly signaling that she's trapped and needs urgent help. Fortunately, one of the junior officers spots her below. Earnestly, "We should go in for a rescue," he tells his senior officer. But according to the senior officer's calculations, the plane had been flying at an extremely high altitude, and from such a height, survival should have been impossible. "The person you saw was likely just a local resident waving at the helicopter," he concludes. The junior officer cannot argue further and follows orders, making Lisa's desperate effort completely useless. Even with her severely injured leg, she somehow keeps moving forward through the dense undergrowth. Meanwhile, the officers continue searching the forest, grimly finding passengers' bodies tangled grotesquely in the trees. However, the thought keeps bothering the junior officer. He manages to convince his senior to make one more sweep of the area. Passionately, "Even if there's only a 1% chance of saving someone, we have to try," giving Lisa one more possible chance at rescue. Inside the forest, a deeper search has now begun. We meet a woman named Risa. Lisa's mother helicopter end up saving Lisa's life. Although her heart is racing uncontrollably, the immediate danger passes. Heavily, with overwhelm, completely exhausted and overwhelmed by pain, she sits down to rest. With desperate need, pulling out a pack of cigarettes to relieve some stress. With bitter frustration, discovering that the crash has completely ruined them. With deepening despair, her frustration grows even more as she feels utterly lost and alone in the endless forest. With devastating certainty, convinced that everyone else is dead. Pause, with haunting weight. As she stares at it, a thought strikes her. With clarity, memories from before the crash return. With purpose, she had noticed the direction the plane was flying. With logical determination, they had been heading west. If she could somehow figure out which direction was west, she could move forward. The other section of the plane might be there. But first, she needed to determine the direction. As she looks around, she notices a teddy bear nearby. After examining it closely, she finds a pin attached to the back. For those unfamiliar with this old survival technique, a pin can be used to find direction by first magnetizing it, which can be done by rubbing it against clothing for a short time. Once magnetized, the pin is placed on a leaf and gently set on water. After waiting for the leaf to settle, the pin aligns itself, one end pointing north, the other south, giving a clear sense of direction. Lisa applies the same method and successfully determines the directions. Deciding to move toward the west, she gathers anything useful. Clothing from the deceased passengers, breaks off her heels because walking in a forest with them is impossible, and continues moving forward by gripping onto trees since her leg injury still hasn't healed. Reflectively, with somber irony, she never imagined she would end up trapped in such a nightmarish situation. And it's clear that Lisa is in serious danger. The forest is filled with wild animals, deadly terrain that shows no mercy to humans. And in the same direction, she notices several broken trees and begins to suspect that the other part of the plane crashed nearby, confirming she's heading the right way. Suddenly, she slips and falls. She realizes she has stepped into quicksand. The more she struggles, the deeper her body sinks, leaving her completely confused and terrified. In such a situation, the most important rule is not to move. Quicksand is designed in such a way that any movement pulls the body further down. If the head sinks, lack of oxygen can become fatal. There is only one real way to escape quicksand. Keep your body completely still while trying to grip any nearby plants or trees and slowly pull yourself upward. If there are no trees around, another method is to dig small holes with your hands near the edge, using them as handholds to gain grip. Continuing creating new holes as the old ones collapse, and gradually lifting yourself out. Keeping your toes flat helps reduce how fast the body sinks. With desperation, Lisa begins to feel that she might not make it, but she applies the first technique, grabbing nearby plants and slowly pulling herself upward. Luckily, the small plant is strong enough for her to escape. However, the entire ordeal drains her energy, leaving her barely able to walk. Yet she knows she still has to find her boyfriend. As she continues the terrain about the danger, she starts climbing anyway. Her troubles only multiply from there. Halfway up, her injured leg slips and she falls hard, sliding rapidly back down, scraping her body against jagged rocks and worsening her injuries. Reaching the bottom, her body feels almost numb. As she looks back up, she realizes she has to climb again, this time using a piece of wood for support. Philosophically, with weight, it feels as if the entire forest and environment are testing whether she possesses the strength to survive such extreme conditions. And, despite countless hardships, Lisa keeps moving forward, only to face another nightmare when she suddenly spots the same tiger sitting calmly ahead. If the tiger notices her this time, it will attack without hesitation. Fear is etched across Lisa's face as she carefully moves sideways without making any noise, hoping the distance between them will keep her hidden. What she doesn't realize is that a tiger's hearing is extremely sharp. The moment her footsteps make a sound, the tiger turns. The tiger accelerates behind her, taking powerful leaps. It's obvious she cannot outrun it. Just as it seems the tiger is about to strike, Lisa suddenly falls into a shallow pit formed between two rocks, which unexpectedly saves her life. As the tiger searches above her eyes, she realizes she's still inside the pit, desperately hoping the tiger will leave. She can feel her leg is now even more badly injured, and that walking properly may no longer be possible. Suddenly, she hears movement in the bushes. It's the same tiger, still searching the area for her. Lisa quietly moves into the corner of the pit, barely breathing. Without finding nothing, it leaves the area. As night slowly falls, Lisa knows she must find a way out. While searching around, she discovers a lighter. This strangely makes her happy, because she still has a cigarette and can finally smoke. Even in such a life-threatening situation, she feels the need to smoke, believing that if this is her final time, she should do what brings her comfort. With night fully set in, Lisa uses the lighter to start a fire. The heat helps her body feel better as she begins smoking. Luckily, she also finds a can of food that fell from the plane, still not expired. She eats it immediately, feeling her energy slowly return as the weakness from the crash begins to still remain that could cost her life. Meanwhile, elsewhere, several Air Force officers are shown discussing something important. One of them, clearly agitated, reveals a critical mistake. Explanatorily, with gravity, during aircraft testing, Air Force pilots normally inform commercial and passenger planes of their presence. But this time, they failed to pass that information. The so-called private plane was actually an Air Force aircraft. Because the passenger plane was never informed, neither pilot knew the other's location, leading the Air Force jet to collide directly with the commercial plane, causing this massive disaster. This explains why the officers are trying to hide the truth, because if the government and the public discover that the crash happened due to an Air Force error, serious questions will be raised. The public will demand accountability, and the government will be directly blamed for the deaths of so many innocent people, turning the incident into a major scandal. Unable to figure out what else to do, the officers focus entirely on covering up the incident. Somehow, Lisa keeps pushing forward through the forest, even as her injured leg begins to give up on her entirely. But when she finally reaches higher ground, she suddenly spots it. The front section of the plane, the very piece she's been searching for all this time. A spark of hope ignites in her mind. Desperately, her boyfriend might still be alive inside that wreckage. At the very least, seeing it with her own eyes will give her certainty. Despite being completely exhausted, a surge of adrenaline rushes through her body as she moves towards it. But another challenge stands in her way. Describing the scene, the plane wreckage lies across a fast-flowing river. With no other option, and driven by the need to save her boyfriend, Lisa jumps into the churning water. At first, everything seems manageable, but as she moves deeper, the strong current begins dragging her forward. The pain in her leg intensifies, her balance weakens, and it feels like she might be swept away. Yet, she refuses to give up. Using whatever strength she has left, she pushes herself forward, inching closer to the opposite bank. After a desperate struggle, she finally reaches the shore, grabs onto a large rock, and pulls herself across. Now, standing close enough to clearly see the front section of the plane, its windows smeared with blood, making it likely that the pilots did not survive. Inside, there are several deceased passengers. Lisa doesn't look closely and instead opens the cockpit door, where she finds a small emergency kit containing a flare gun and its cartridges, meant for signaling in emergencies. This helicopter is nearby to notice it. Disappointed but not defeated, she prepares to fire another flare, then suddenly stops herself, realizing that wasting the ammunition would be pointless. Practically, she removes the cartridge to turn against her as the temperature suddenly plummets. She starts feeling intensely cold, with hardly any clothing left to keep her body warm. She quickly gathers all the wood she can find to start a fire, but the lighter no longer works, obviously because it got wet, leaving her unable to light a fire and forcing her to face the freezing temperature. Lisa's mind starts to shut down, yet she somehow manages to put a plastic bag over her head to help maintain a normal temperature, preventing her brain from shutting down completely. She lies down, but the cold only keeps getting worse. Before long, she passes out right there. No one knows how she will survive. The scene shing entry to anyone until their investigation is finished, even stopping the victims' families from entering. Lisa's boyfriend's mother, Kelly, begs repeatedly for permission. She is ultimately denied. Her father, Stuart, is equally distressed, hoping that his connections with senior officers might help locate their children. Unable to wait any longer, driving through multiple forest routes, Kelly reaches the base camp where senior officers are conducting their investigation. Soon, the other officers arrive and detain Kelly and Stuart. However, a senior officer who knows Stuart is already there. He orders the others to release them. Risa, Kelly, and Stuart are quickly called into the office. The officers explain the details of the case, recognizing that these parents are extremely worried and cannot be treated harshly. All three parents are left in deep shock when they learn that the plane truly did crash, that a rescue team was sent, but that no survivors were found. However, neither Lisa's parents nor her boyfriend's parents are willing to believe that their children are dead. They refuse to accept it until they see the truth with their own eyes. The officers assure them that the investigation is still ongoing. Both families provide photographs of their children to help with identification. One of the junior officers becomes deeply troubled. He immediately informs his senior that during the initial helicopter search, back in the forest, Lisa is shown in a much weaker state than before, having nearly lost hope that her boyfriend could still be alive, though her spots a bag hanging in a tree, which turns out to belong to her boyfriend. When she checks it, she finds several drawings he'd made of her. Seeing them causes her to drift into memories, lost in a flood of dreams and hope. She becomes lost in memories, recalling the beautiful moments she spent with her boyfriend, missing him deeply. She soon begins to believe that he might be nearby, pushing herself to search even faster. When she reaches a pit, she suddenly sees her boyfriend sitting there in pain. Without hesitation, Lisa jumps down, ignoring everything, paying no mind to the agony in her own injured leg. She rushes to him, hugs him tightly, feeling overwhelming joy that he's alive and that they'll both survive. The sound of a helicopter echoes above, making it feel as if everything is finally going to be okay. But this is not reality at all. It is only Lisa's imagination. In truth, her boyfriend is there, but he does not respond. His body is cold. He is already dead. When this reality hits her, she breaks down completely, crying uncontrollably, unable to accept that something like this could happen. Yet it's clear that in such a catastrophic crash, survival is nearly impossible. She herself is incredibly lucky to still be alive. Completely broken, Lisa decides to stay there. But this is not her destiny. After some time, she realizes she has to move on, knowing that if her boyfriend were alive, he would want her to survive. She says her final farewell and tries to leave, but ice and water have made the area slippery, making it difficult to climb out of the pit. Meanwhile, a large team of the loss of the person she loved more than anything in her life. After nearly a week of unimaginable pain, isolation, and fear, she is finally rescued. But survival itself feels heavy rather than victorious. What makes this story even more disturbing is that it's not just fiction. It's inspired by a real incident from the last century, when a Soviet Union commercial aircraft collided mid-air with an Air Force plane. The crash was so catastrophic that everyone on board was killed, except for one woman named Larissa, who somehow managed to survive against all odds. A reminder of how fragile life can be, and how survival sometimes comes at an unbearable emotional cost.